Good morning, y'all. It's Mamaw Yates, and I'm here to talk to you about the edTPA. Now, a lot of times I get some questions that have to do a lot with the structure of things and how to plan accordingly. So I made this little guide, which you can purchase on Teacher Pay Teachers if you'd like to have your own copy instead of just referring to mine back and forth. So I have linked that in the description. That's all I'm going to say about that. So all of the commentaries and your context for learning are all found, they're separate files. So you don't take your handbook and try to copy and paste it out of that PDF document. You need to get a copy of your template from your edTPA facilitator or edTPA coordinator or your instructor or whoever's working with you. If you're unaffiliated with the institution, then you should contact edTPA directly. That's all explained here at the top. Now, for most handbooks, your commentary is going to be 9 pages. And so I've broken it down by rubric and suggested page links. For example, for prompt number 1, that is scored with rubric 1. Now, there are some, like the literacy specialist, there are some, I'm sorry, I can't think of the word. Oh, there are some handbooks that are not included in that, but as you can see, that's almost everybody. Prompt 2 is actually not really scored, but it sets up the information that you need for prompt 3, and prompt 3 is scored by both rubric 2 and 3. Prompt 4 is rubric 4, unless you're world language, in which case you don't have the same prompt and rubric 4 as everybody else. Prompt 5 is scored with rubric 5. Now, take that 9 pages and figure out, how do you want that to go? Well, that first prompt is just like really important because it sets up your entire learning segment. 1C is the most important part of that prompt. That's the one that's just got the most significance for rubric 1. Secondary English, your 1C is 1D. So everybody kind of needs to check. So we're talking about the rubric that basically talks about how your lessons build on each other. I find that the average length for that should be at least 2 pages for that entire prompt, with most of your emphasis on 1C or 1D. Prompt 2, you're just providing information on the students, the things they like, the things they don't, things they don't like to do, some key information that's important to the central focus. So, for example, if your central focus has to do with World War II, there's no need to give information on whether or not these kids like to skateboard, right? Unless they're going to be skateboarding in your W2 learning segment. So it's just information about the students that has to do with your central focus. Somehow you've brought it into your learning segment due to their interests and your activities or the text that you chose, whatever. So you're talking about the information. So it's prompt 3 that becomes really important, because if you think about prompt 3 being scored by both rubric 2 and 3, that means prompt 3 by itself is worth 10 points. Each rubric is 5 points. So you want to put most of your emphasis, a lot of emphasis on rubric 2 and 3, prompt 3, because it's scored with 2 rubrics. You need educational theory for this prompt. I do have a resource for that in my TPT store. Now, if you are world language, then you don't write an academic language prompt because your whole thing is academic language, right? So we have 1.5 pages is a pretty good amount for prompt 4 for everybody else. Prompt 5, I suggest 2 pages. You're going to need, again, educational theory for this prompt. Now, this is something I get asked a lot. Where do I put citations? All citations go at the end of the planning commentary. Citations are important, but you all have a tendency to think they're more important than they really are. No one checks your citations. There's no condition code for forgetting citations or doing them incorrectly. It's just really an ethical, professional consideration to cite work and sources. So it doesn't matter if your references come from the planning commentary, task 2, or task 3, whatever. It all comes and goes to the end of the planning commentary. Everything, like it's a bibliography or a citations page or whatever, all goes in one place. That's because there's other stuff that goes at the end of task 2 and other stuff at the end of task 3. Okay, so you get into task 2. This is where things get off. Up here it was all nice and neat. 1 to 1, 2 and 3 to 2 to 3, then 4 to 4, 5 to 5, right? Easy to keep up with. You start getting here, it gets a little bit more complicated for a couple of reasons. Okay, first of all, prompt 1 is not scored. You're only going to write a few sentences, but those sentences are very important because they give a context to the scores. So you want to identify the lessons that are used in the clips. So if you have a clip from lesson 1, or if both clips are from lesson 2, whatever, you want to identify that there. If you have a classroom of 25 students that you've talked about in your context for learning, but you ended up recording with just a small group, make sure it's at least 4 students, then you've got to mention that there. You just really need to mention that there so that the scorer will know. If you've done some kind of crazy situation where you're doing high flex teaching, God help you, hybrid, if you've got a virtual learning environment, you may have planned in your context for learning and your planning commentary that might have all been planned for a face-to-face, and now all of a sudden everybody went home and you had to teach it virtually. Then you don't have to go back and change your planning commentary. You just go here and you say this was recorded in a virtual learning environment. If it was, I had one student that was teaching. You could see her with her computer. There were students clearly out in front of her. Behind her, you could see the smart board, and the smart board had faces of the students. So that's important that you mention this crazy kind of, especially COVID stuff up here. Prompt 2, this is directly related to Rubric 6, and this is with everybody except for agriculture. I don't see many of those, and world language. Prompt 3 is Rubric 7. And then you get here, this is where a lot of people get tripped up because there's always been prompt rubric, prompt rubric. We get into task 2, now we've got a prompt that's scored with 2 rubrics. So you've got prompt 4A scored with rubric 8 and prompt 4B scored with rubric 9. And so that becomes really important. And so keep that in mind when you write. A lot of people, they're writing prompt 4 and they think, oh, I don't have much to say for 4A, but I've got a lot to say for 4B. That's okay, but that's not okay. 4A should be 1 page all by itself, and 4B should be 1 page all by itself. And then prompt 5, that is scored with rubric 10. Some other things you need to know about task 2. Most of the time, there's a maximum of 6 pages for your handbook. That is because the primary source of evidence for rubric 6, 7, 8, and 9 is the the video itself. So that I've noted that here. You're always writing in the past tense in Rubric 2. That's different from Rubric 1 where you're writing in the future tense. Everything is planning what you're going to do. So task 2, you've got these past tense. Everybody needs to look at their own handbooks for Rubric 6, 7, 8, 9. If you've been talking to someone who did a literacy handbook and you're doing math, you need to look at your own handbook. Your rubric, everybody's rubrics are different, especially Rubric 9, which is the bane of my existence. So Rubric 9 is just like, somebody shoot me. It's so awful because no one's got the same thing. You've got math doing representations, and you've got people in literacy, and they're all doing different essential literacy strategies that they're modeling, and then you've got something completely different for science. It's just, you've really got to look at your Rubric 9, and you really need to look at your understanding rubric level progression. Now, when you write prompt 5, this is scored with Rubric 9, unless, of course, you're world language or agriculture. And because this one is really scored from what you write, not from the video, then you need to work really hard to write really well. And so I think 2 pages is adequate, what you should do for prompt 5. 1 page for the rest of these. People go overboard with this prompt 2. They're getting carried away. It's their first one. I'm got respect here, rapport here, respect here, rapport here. Give like 20 examples of their low risk, challenging classroom environment. And really, you just need one good solid example. That's it. They're going to be looking at your video mainly. You're just pointing out the best example of these things. So don't go overboard if you're writing a prompt 2. You want to save room to write well for 4A and 4B. And for prompt 5, you want to make sure that you leave yourself 2 pages to write. Now, you want to work hard to get as many points as you can from prompt 5 to kind of make up for the other prompts, because frankly, this is everybody's lowest scoring task, because a lot of it relies on how well things went when you taught with the students. And we know there's only so much you can control over what happens during your teaching, right? So all kinds of things can go wrong, including your camera not working when you've got your very best lesson. So I like to advise people to pull as many points as they can from prompt 5. You're going to put some documentation at the end of task 2, commentary, the commentary file, not your citations. Where do they go? Did you answer planning commentary? Yay, if you did. If you didn't, all citations go at the end of the planning commentary. But let's say that there was a really important image that that needed to be seen, then in your video, but you didn't see it, explaining your video, then you can insert that. So for just a regular edTPA, you have 2 additional pages. But if you have a virtual learning environment, you should follow this link. And actually, I have also a video on virtual learning environment. And lots of information. If you click this, actually, it just takes you to edTPA's information about what you can put at the end of that. So it's a very important document to look at if you can. All right, let's go back to where we were. Now we're talking about task 3. And in task 3, with prompt 1, it's rubric 11, unless, of course, you're world language. For those of you who aren't world language and classical language, these are our 13, they have 13 rubrics instead of 15 because they don't do academic language. Prompt 2A and B are scored with rubric 12, and prompt 2C is scored with rubric 13. Again, this is a mistake a lot of people make. They think, okay, 2A is 2, they just think, I don't know what they think, but they don't realize that they've got to write just as much for 2C as they did for 2B. 2A and B is where you describe your feedback evidence, and a lot of people just really go overboard with that, and they write a couple of 3 pages when really the primary source of evidence is your actual feedback. So that's why I say just 1 page. 2C should be longer because it's no longer the evidence that you're using is no longer your actual feedback. You're describing what's going to happen in this. And this is actually written in future tense. Right here should be future tense. And I don't have that in there. That's interesting. I just now realized that. So this is past tense, this is past tense, this is future tense, and this is future tense. I think I have that in another document. I've just pulled up the wrong one. I have one that I upgraded to include that. And let me look, see if I can find it. Okay, I'm back. So that's not something I've done much in my videos, but I just want to make sure I had this document pulled up, but somehow or another, when I went to look at that Pearson document, I lost it. So here we've got Task 3 Assessment Commentary, and you can see I've got the verb tense is past, past, future, past, future. So again, 1:11, 2AB is 12, 2C is 13. Most people have about 10 pages maximum for their commentary. I suggest prompt 1, 3 pages. And the reason I say that is that you want to make sure that you've got plenty of room for your graph or graphs. Prompt 2AB, only 1 page because the primary source of evidence is your actual feedback. 2C is 1.5 because you really need to take some time. This is a very complicated prompt. I have a video for it, but you have got to describe how you're going to support your students in understanding their feedback using strengths and weaknesses. Then you're going to describe how you're going to support your students in using the feedback, right, by employing their strengths and weaknesses. And you got to do that with all 3 focus students. So this gets pretty complex. Leave yourself plenty of room to write. Prompt 3, this is academic language. The evidence is going to come from a video, audio, work sample file. However, because that video file might be your task 2, you need to make sure that you explain it very, very well. And so I give that at least 1.5 pages. And then prompt 4, this is written in future tense. And it's not reliant upon evidence of what you've done, but what you plan to do, because this is your next steps. It's very important to make strong, clear connections between your learning patterns and your objectives, your subject-specific emphasis, unique learners. Educational theory is very important here. Now, at the end of your assessment commentary, do you put your citations at the end of your assessment commentary? Did you answer no? If you did, good for you. All citations go at the end of the planning commentary, right? But you're going to insert a copy of your assessment or any kind of directions or prompts that you gave the students for the assessment. All of that goes at the end of the assessment commentary. So you just kind of cut and paste it onto the end of the commentary. I know it seems weird and awkward. So I hope this is useful to you. Again, this is something you might want to get from the Teacher Pay Teacher store. The link is provided, and you don't have to, especially if you work at East Tennessee State University. I'll provide this for you. But I do hope that you will like and follow my channel, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.